Welcome to Let's Talk Red Hill, your source for the latest updates and insights on the Navy's progress at the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you informed, addressing your concerns, and sharing progress straight from the experts leading the way.
Hey everyone, I'm Hannah Lehman.
And I'm Rear Admiral Mark Williams.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Red Hill. We're excited to bring you the latest updates straight from the source on the Navy Closure Task Force Red Hill and our progress in closing the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility and environmental remediation.
Today we're going to take a break from our usual operational topics and we're going to talk about something a little different, redactions.
Redactions, interesting. What do redactions have to do with our job here at Navy Closure Task Force?
So as part of our closure efforts, the task force creates work plans, reports, and many other submittals that are shared with regulators, either for their approval or for their general information. Sharing this information with the public is also an important part of our closure efforts. However, these documents usually contain what is called controlled unclassified information, or known by the acronym CUI. And this requires us to redact certain pieces of information in the document before sharing it openly with the public.
Okay, so what is that CUI, or controlled unclassified information, and why does it matter if it's in the NCTF documents?
So CUI, it's unclassified information that the government creates or possesses that a law or regulation or government-wide policy requires or permits an agency to handle using safeguarding or dissemination controls. In short, really, CUI is information that, because of the law or policy, we can only share that with certain people who have a need to access it to conduct official DoD and U.S. government business. What that means in practice for us is that when we provide something to the regulators unredacted, we usually have to then follow up with a redacted version of the same document that can be shared with the public as required by law.
So what kind of information is it that's actually being redacted?
So CUI can refer to a lot of different types of information, but in the Red Hill documents, the most common information that we see is really DCRIT or PII.
I've heard these terms a lot. What do PII and DCRIT actually mean?
So PII stands for personally identifiable information. This is information that can be used to identify an individual either directly or indirectly. For the NCTF records, this typically means things like our team members' names, email addresses, and phone numbers. DCRIT stands for Defense Critical Infrastructure Security Information, and under federal law section 130E of Title 10 to the United States Code, the Secretary of Defense has the authority to designate information as being Department of Defense critical infrastructure security information in order to ensure such information is not disseminated without authorization. The term, as defined in the statute, really means sensitive but unclassified information that, if disclosed, would reveal vulnerabilities in Department of Defense critical infrastructure that, if exploited, would likely result in a significant disruption or destruction or even damage of or to Department of Defense operations, property, or facilities.
So, but now that Red Hill is defueled, why does DCRIT still apply?
So the DCRIT designation for Red Hill has not been lifted by the Secretary of Defense since defueling. Even without the fuel in the tanks, until our mission of permanently decommissioning all of the Red Hill underground storage tanks, and that is complete, and we've got all the pipelines disconnected and removed from the facility, the Red Hill facility cannot be distinguished from a still fully operational fuel system on the Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam, and thus is still considered DCRIT. Furthermore, the Department of Defense is still considering possible beneficial reuses for the facility, and although those are not going to include any fuel storage, there are many other types of infrastructure unrelated to fuel storage that are considered DCRIT.
So once the mission is complete, does that mean that the designation will be lifted?
So once the Red Hill facility has been fully disconnected from the active operating fuel system at Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam, and the reuse determination has been finalized, and that does not include or not implicate any sort of DCRIT infrastructure, the Department of Defense will revisit the DCRIT designation. In the meantime, though, our mission will continue to meet all of our legal obligations to redact all CUI until such time as the facility may no longer be designated as defense critical.
So what other types of information are considered DCRIT that fall under the NCTF mission?
Yeah, so there's a couple critical infrastructure designations that fall under our mission. And a couple examples of those are really all of our water production wells that provide drinking water to the base's drinking water system. And additionally, and that includes kind of the locations and pumping rates and such. And then additionally that all of our groundwater monitoring well locations are also considered critical infrastructure.
So what I'm hearing is that if this information was disclosed, it identifies potential vulnerabilities?
Correct. So the idea really with DCRIT is it's information that could potentially be exploited by adversaries.
Okay, so that's a lot of information that is important people do understand. And with that, is the protection of that critical infrastructure specific to the Department of Defense?
No, it's not only for the Department of Defense. And so according to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, there are 16 actually critical infrastructure sectors that are considered fundamental to the delivery of basic kind of societal community functions. And the foremost common the foremost critical here are really, we're talking about energy, communications, transportation, and water. And all of these really, may be owned or operated by local government partners. And many of them are vital to health, economy, and the security of the community. And they're all required to protect information related to that. So.
Got it. So the task force talks a lot about engaging with public, but maybe how can the public engage if the Navy is withholding full information about what they're doing?
So the Navy Closure Task Force motto is safe, deliberate, engaged, and committed. And as part of being engaged with the community, we have promised proactive transparency. And when it comes to redacting information, we have to find a balance between transparency and security while complying with all of our legal obligations. In that effort, Rail Barnett and I have given guidance to all of our personnel that we are to be as liberal as possible in releasing information, meaning only apply redactions that are absolutely legally necessary and required. But when it comes to information most relevant to the community, that is not redacted at all, right? I mean, no testing data has ever been redacted. It is all available on our Safe Waters website. All the information about our tank cleaning and verification plans are also available so that folks can understand what is being done. When we are ventilating the tanks, right, we're posting that hourly air quality monitoring data. And again, none of that is ever redacted. We post summaries, monthly calls received to our call centers, including any complaints we receive about the water. And then really, the Navy Closure Task Force only redacts information that we are absolutely required to redact by law in order to protect DoD personnel and assets. We are not and will never withhold information because it is unfavorable or critical of the Navy. And most importantly, the EPA and Department of Health, who have oversight over the closure process and environmental remediation processes, they have full and open access to all of the information. So even when we redact to the public, they have full and open access to all of it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Mark, for your time today and explaining why we redact documents. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. We look forward to sharing more updates about the Navy Closure Task Force efforts during our next episode.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Let's Talk Red Hill.
Mahalo for listening to Let's Talk Red Hill. Stay tuned for our next episode, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date. Be sure to download the mobile app by searching NCTF Red Hill in the Apple Store or Google Play.